We open with a security operation this morning when police undercover officers killed 2 Palestinian terrorists during a raid near Jericho. The border police forces entered the Aqaba Jabr village to arrest a wanted man and search for weapons. Palestinian gunmen opened fire at the forces. During an exchange of fire, 2 gunmen were killed. Meanwhile, IDF troops detained 8 wanted Palestinians during sweeps across Judea and Samaria this morning, with clashes in some areas. Last night, Palestinian gunmen opened fire from the northern Samaria town of Yabed at a nearby IDF post for the 3rd time in 4 days. Troops were unharmed and returned fire at the source of the shooting. Hezbollah terrorist leader Hassan Nassallah made a blustery warning to Israel, saying if there is a war in Lebanon, Israel too will go back to the Stone Age. These words by Nasrallah come amid a series of Hezbollah provocations on the Lebanese border, and Steve Leibovich has more.
In recent months, Hezbollah has carried out a series of provocations on Israel's northern border with Lebanon. Nasrallah's remark was in apparent response to Defense Minister Yoav Gallant's comment while touring the northern border last week. Gallant told Nasrallah, "Do not make a mistake. If an escalation or conflict develops, Israel will return Lebanon to the Stone Age." Speaking from his bunker in Beirut, marking the 17th anniversary of the end of the Second Lebanon War in 2006, Nasrallah said this.
لذلك أنا أقول لهذا العدو اليوم أستطيع أن أقول له بالدليل والبرهان أنتم أيضا سيتم إعادتكم إلى العصر الحجري. إذا بتروحوا على الحرب مع لبنان.
Nasrallah also offered his opinion on the internal situation in Israel, saying that a law that would exempt ultra-Orthodox Jews from the army would be a major blow to the Israeli army, and that the IDF is in the worst condition it's ever been in. The highly divisive Haredi draft bill is due to be considered at the start of the fall session of the Knesset, with IDF Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi struggling to maintain unity in the ranks. Halevi is criticized by some coalition members as being soft on reservists for refusing to serve due to judicial reform protests. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant swiftly defended Halevi in a tweet, praising him as one of the most excellent officers that I've ever met in my years in the IDF and security establishment.
A 3-day Arab summit was held in Alamein between the leaders of Egypt, Jordan, and the Palestinian Authority, with potential Israeli-Saudi normalization topping the agenda. More from ILTV's William Sharon.
The issue of possible normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia was a central topic in yesterday's meeting in Egypt between President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, Jordan's King Abdallah, and Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas. The 3 leaders met in the Egyptian coastal city of Alamein. During the meeting, the leaders discussed what was called the development of the Palestinian cause. While there was no mention of the potential Israeli-Saudi normalization in the official statement, a Palestinian official told the media it was a key topic on the table. The Arab leaders reportedly discussed the U.S. efforts to achieve normalization of relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel and the Palestinian requirements in the framework of signing such a deal. Last weekend, Saudi Arabia announced that it has named the ambassador to Jordan as the ambassador extraordinary to the state of Palestine and the consul general in Jerusalem. Foreign Minister Eli Cohen rejected the notion, telling Israel National News, "Israel does not allow any country to open a consulate in Jerusalem. Therefore, we did not authorize this for any country, and we will not allow this in the future." Cohen went on to describe the Saudi announcement as a lip service to the Palestinians to assure them they were not forgotten in negotiations with the U.S. and Israel. "We proved in the Abraham Accords as well as the Palestinian issue is not a roadblock to peace. This is not a central issue in the negotiations, and therefore I think we could reach a solution in this matter as well while keeping our ideology," says Cohen.
Experience the power of truth with ILTV News. If you're looking for quality content and captivating visuals, join our news community and become an integral part of our team as we embark on a mission to unveil the real Israel, dismantling the web of lies and misinformation that surround reporting on Israel. By subscribing to ILTV News, you will not only have access to the latest updates, but you will also amplify our message, creating a ripple effect that carries the truth far and wide. Subscribe today and help reshape the narrative. Available on the web, Android, and Apple.
In the midst of rising tensions and evolving diplomatic landscapes in our region, we're now joined by Brigadier General in the Reserves Amir Avivi To wrap up all the latest security updates, Amir, let's start with Lebanese terrorist leader Hassan Nassallah. His threatening comments come after a series of provocations. Are we potentially on the brink of a conflict?
I don't think we're on the brink of conflict. I think that Nasrallah in his talk didn't show any motivation to go into war. He mentioned a lot the Second Lebanese War. From his perspective, of course, he's presenting it as a win. He talked about something interesting. He talked about the change in the doctrine in Israel after 2006 and the huge buildup of air defense and the IDF investing really much more on the defensive side. The way he looks at it is that this diminishes supposedly the ability of the IDF to really operate in an offensive way. So he's building on this change and thinks that maybe the IDF will have difficulty to operate. He mentioned also the tensions with the Christian leadership and community in Lebanon and threatened not to lead Lebanon into a civil war, as we saw in the past. So we can definitely see that Hezbollah leader is very worried about the tensions inside Lebanon. And in this reality, he can really not afford any war.
Yes, Amir, another thing Nasrallah commented on is the Israeli Haredi draft law. It appears that the internal divisions in Israel are being pretty much exploited by our enemies.
So definitely they see it as a sign of weakness. And this is a strong message to all these reservists who are politicizing the army. This is really endangering Israel. We must keep the army outside of any political discussion. We cannot agree to a reality where reservists involve the army in politics and say they're not going to volunteer or serve in reserve anymore. This needs to change. We see our enemies looking at it, hoping and feeling that we are getting weak. Nasrallah also mentioned the threats Israel made, especially the Minister of Defense, that said that will bring Lebanon back to the Stone Age. And he said, this is exactly what we can do to you. And he mentioned the missiles project and the ability of Hezbollah to hit precisely airports, whether it's the civilian airport or the military Air Force bases. So this is something that he mentioned specifically. And we must say that the IDF is operating all the time, around the clock, trying to prevent this build-up of capability of missiles, precise missiles, in the hand of Hezbollah.
Of course, Amir. Now, turning to Egyptian President al-Sisi, hosted Jordanian King Abdallah and PA leader Abbas for talks mostly focused on the potential Israeli-Saudi normalization. Are they looking for the Palestinians to be included in the potential deal?
I think that it's the American administration that is really pushing very hard to include the Palestinians. I don't think that on the Saudi side, this is the major issue. Of course, they need to show publicly that they are doing something for the Palestinians. But really, when you talk to the leadership of the Saudi, there is two things that really are in their main focus. One is Iran, and they need American assurances that they will be kept safe from any possible Iranian aggression, and also that the US will be proactive in preventing Iran from becoming nuclear. And the other thing that is not much talked about, but maybe it's even a bigger threat than Iran for Saudi Arabia, this is Sunni radicalism. This is the rise of ISIS again after the withdrawal from Afghanistan. It's Al-Qaeda and all these groups that might challenge the Saudi regime in the future. And this is something that within time we'll need to talk more about as their forces are getting stronger again after the Russian withdrawal from Syria and the American withdrawal from Afghanistan.
I assume we'll have a whole separate session about that. Amir, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.